I'm Kat.
I'm Arden 13.
Welcome to our show, World Tiger,
Building Dragon.
Today we are continuing with some of World Anvil's summer camp prompts.
Summer camp is a program set up by the World Anvil team to promote world building as well as the community in general.
There'll be a total of 33 prompts all throughout the month of July, so if you're looking to win some prizes for your submissions, go check it out.
World Anvil is a free in-browser tool that has everything a world builder or a GM may ever need.
They also have some really incredible subscription options, so go check those out as well.
Totally worth it, totally affordable. If you're interested, please go check them out. But in the meantime, I think it's time we got to the prompt. What is the prompt?
Today we get to write about a commonly found document in our world, one that is widespread.
Interesting. Speaking of documents, Kat and I have set ourselves up with some parameters to complete this project. Each of us has 30 minutes to answer the prompt.
Each of our submissions have to be at minimum 300 words.
After the 300 words and our 30 minutes have expired, we're going to come back together and share what we came up with.
Some of our best ideas have come from collaborations.
Absolutely. You ready to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this done.
Time skip!
And we are back.
We're back!
We're back.
What'd you think about this one?
So I'm going to be honest. When we started this, when we were getting ready to do this, I had zero idea what I was going to do.
Right, something that's a document that's widespread.
Yeah. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was thinking, like, my mind kept going back to, like, maybe I'll do, like, a newspaper of some kind, or maybe, but my biggest issue is, like, looking at any of my, well, looking specifically at Elecrid, the biggest problem I found there was that it is such a territorial space. It's just such a territorial world. People don't really communicate back and forth with each other. Having a widespread document that is short of an arcane tome is nigh impossible to really come up with, I suppose. But then I went back to Nora, and I landed with Nora. I continued with Nora, but the first thing that I came up with, I will admit, the first thing I came up with, I started writing and I was like, crap, this isn't widespread. This is a very secret thing. Not very many people know about it, so I had to go back and start again. But I actually got somewhere. I'm very excited about it. What about you?
I really liked this a lot. I found it was easy to, once I got an idea, well, no, once I got an idea, I found that the prompts that they had were super easy to work with, and it felt natural that the way that things were moving, you know, as far as like general information, how is it structured, historical details. I found all of that super easy to just, one thing led to another for me. But yeah.
I have to ask, because we did have a moment with everyone else in the studio, what was your thought process when you saw the fourth tab, actual content?
Actual content. There was this moment where I was like, okay, contents, like, great, so maybe I'll just write, like, this is what this is about. And then I kept scrolling, and it's just a white box.
It's just a massive
And at the very bottom,
box.
it says, what's the actual content / display of this document? And that's when it hit me. I was like, oh, they want me to actually write this out? Like a book? Just put it in World Anvil? I was like, I need to find the person that wrote an actual book and put it in their World Anvil, and they just have it. I mean, that's for the real crazies out there, the people that...
Well, you say that, but then we were sitting here and we were like gassing about it, and then all of a sudden Mal started yelling at me and saying, like, no, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. I didn't do that, and I picked something that I actually can't do that.
Okay.
So, and it makes sense, so we're fine. But I just wanted to get your opinion because at that moment we didn't get your opinion.
Right. I think that's awesome. First and foremost, I think that is a really, really great idea. But holy cow, I cannot imagine.
I can't.
Like, anyway.
Do you want to go first then?
Yeah, I'll start with
without further ado.
Yeah,
what did we come up with?
This, so what I came up with was a manuscript, kind of educational document called The Scripts. It's real original. It was a manuscript published by the country of Sondomanel, which is, I mentioned this earlier, they mostly follow the god Obin, the god of knowledge. Right. So their huge thing is just seeking out knowledge, spreading knowledge, you know, just wanting to know everything. And so from that country, they created something called the scripts, which within its pages, it's got the very basics of understanding common, mathematics, world knowledge, religion, just very simple concepts.
So your general studies, essentially?
Right, a general studies book. That way, everyone is kind of on common ground as far as knowledge. And this really helped build up Theatrim to be where it is, because the countries that really allowed for this book to take hold were able to develop and grow a lot faster than the countries that kind of pushed it away. It can be, because it is so simple, it can be easily translated into other languages. Gnomish, the halfling language, any of the human tongue, Elvish.
More of the, I wouldn't say exotic languages, but perhaps more of the common languages. You're talking like Elvish, Dwarvish.
Right, things that
Gnomish,
aren't
people that
common. They can, it's easily translated.
Okay.
But yeah, I went into, part of its purpose was just to really just create this equal playing field for everybody that really wanted it. Let's see, going into its structure, I was really able to segment in, like, this is what would go into each segment of the book. So you've got, in the segment all about just understanding common, you have the alphabet, sentence structures, and kind of giving you the bare minimum. So if you were walking around the streets of Theatrim and you are on the road, it is this is how I say, where do I go to the bathroom? This is how you say, it's the very minimalistic.
So it has everything from, like, understanding the basic principles of the language to even having, like, the most common phrases, essentially?
Right. It's like the Traveler's Guide to Theatrim a little bit. And so you have that also in their, mathematics section. They've got the fundamentals of addition and subtraction. They also have, hey, this is the value of coin, this is the value of certain trade goods, common items, even varying in different countries around the world. Obviously you can't go too specific, but they can give you a general idea of, like, this is about how much it's gonna cost for a meal in this country, and this is kind of what you can expect. They have a section all about history, which it's told from the perspective of the people of Sondomanel, so that can kind of be interesting, where a lot of nations kind of skipped over that, because it does kind of show what I wrote down here is that it covers the conquests of truth, which is what they called it, as a more lighthearted nature, kind of allowing for the readers to gain a better understanding from their people's constant search of knowledge, versus on the other end of it felt like them pushing their own ideals onto these other countries. So
it definitely has a bias in that respect,
there is
a cultural
definitely
bias.
Yes, and the main bias comes in on that last section, which is all about religion. So it is undoubtedly the most controversial piece of the scripts, because of course in this first version, when they wrote it, it was all about this god Obin and how he is the one that is the leader of the gods and all these things, and when you kind of approach that other nations with their own gods, they don't really like that. So as later editions of the scripts came in, the pantheon definitely got more fleshed out, and still from their perspective, certain gods are higher than others purely because of their own biases. But yeah, and some gods might be rewritten as just greater heroes, or it really just depends on how they were feeling about the people from that country and their beliefs. One of the sections they had was all about kind of defining the parameters, or like, this document will only last for 10 days or whatever, but this is purely just to educate people. Trying to see. It's very widespread. It can pretty much be found wherever it was kind of accepted. So you've got schools, libraries, and churches. And I'm trying to think of anything else.
I actually have a question, because you brought it up. You've told me a little bit about the Pantheon of Theatrim. To my understanding, Oben, at least you didn't articulate this to me, Oben is not like the king of the gods by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But the people of Sondominel believe that he is, in a way?
Yes, because he was the one that they mainly worshipped. Because they appreciated knowledge so much, so they thought, yes, he must be the head god. He's in charge. He's the smartest. He's the one who knows all. Why wouldn't he be?
Sure.
Why wouldn't he be king of the gods?
So, like, if I may make the illusion, he is incredibly erudite. And so it's like that kind of, not necessarily an allusion to that, but kind of the same thing that the Divergent books were kind of doing.
Kind of, yeah,
like,
yeah.
We are the smartest, so why aren't we the ones who are in charge?
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
sure. Because, by the way, I'm not trying to, like, make you explain your entire Pantheon system.
No, but yeah.
But if I remember correctly, every one of your main gods, so we've talked about Oben, we've talked about Sol, we've talked about Fruvnus, Kidal, and Kaifen, they all kind of have their own pantheons themselves. They have their own, like, little sub-deities that serve them.
So Fruvnos and Kidal are actually, they're the dragon lords, so they're kind of separate. They're doing their own thing. But
as dragons should.
As dragons do. So yes, I've got those 8 gods, and each of the eight gods have their own mini pantheons that they've set up for themselves, that serve underneath them, depending on if they're a more creative god versus more destructive god. They have infernals or immortals. So
it's kind of the way that you have that set.
Right.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends.
So does this book then, in the later editions you kind of alluded to, do they acknowledge this?
Yes.
Okay.
So later on, in later versions of this book, they are a lot more accepting and because again, they're all about the spread of knowledge. And so they do have that bias of like, well, Oben's the best. But there are, if you travel to Rodanef, these are the gods that you will see the worship of. And these are taking it more from a historical point of view versus a religious point of view when it comes to the other gods.
Okay. I didn't mean to make you go on a full tangent.
No, yeah.
I can
talk about them all day.
That was something that I was more interested in that I wanted you to articulate. Okay.
I went into a little bit of like the background and the history as to like why they really wrote it. Again, it was just to spread knowledge. Once the people of Sondominel started to actually travel across Theatrim, they realized that they really weren't getting across, and they were almost a little like, what do you mean you guys don't have common knowledge? What do you mean you guys don't have schools? What are you...
What do you mean you're not educated?
You know, so at first, it did come from a place of like, let us educate you in our ways. But it was still, you know, there were people that were genuinely excited to have this information, because now you have an easy way to just learn how to read and learn how to write, learn how to do the basics of math, and that can change a lot of people's lives. So I think that was about it. I'm not really seeing too much else that I went into.
I really like the fact that for me, I haven't really gone into or explored the idea of general studies or education. I think that those are kind of amorphous ideas that I attribute to certain locations. If you are raised in this kind of area, then if it's more, I guess, progressive in the sense that like there are actual like physical education settings, then yeah, people will be encouraged to go to school. Maybe there's a public school system, but I haven't really like ever put that to paper. But I really like how this kind of fills all of that in a concise way.
One of the things that I really liked about this too is it gave me a reason to have a common language throughout Theatrim, versus just like, a lot of people traveled, so this is kind of how it worked. This is the language that kind of developed. Which there is definitely parts of that in there, but...
So, sort of like a trade language?
Yes.
In that respect?
Yes, versus this is more like, this is a common language that was given to almost everybody in Theatrim that is kind of that common ground.
Okay. So the way that I kind of perceive that, and, you know, shoot me down if this is wrong or if you don't like this idea, but if this was a publication by the people of Saint-Dominal, then would their version of common, their version of the trade language basically be their own common,
yeah.
the common tongue in Saint-Dominal?
With like bits and pieces from other countries thrown in for flavor just to make them happy when they read the later editions, but yes, mostly it would be their own tongue.
In the way that English is the trade language for Earth?
Yep.
Or is English the trade language for Earth? That's another thing.
That's another we can go into that other
topic
tangent another time.
We can talk about.
I'm more interested to see what you came up with.
Sure. So, any other closing thoughts?
No, I think that pretty much covered everything that I had.
Okay, let me fumble through this. So, I went with Nora. Mm-hmm. I think I may have mentioned that earlier. But I went with Nora because I thought I could approach this a little bit easier. Because Nora, in its current standing, is pretty much a unified globe. And I can really just say that this is a world that this could potentially be a thing, that there could be a widespread document that people would have access to. And it would make sense as opposed to a very divided territorial kind of setting. So with Nora, I created, the name is pending, but the current name that it is being referred to as is the Log of Criminals.
Ooh.
And shorthand, it is just referred to as the Log. If anyone in Nora mentions the Log, they know exactly what you're talking about. And basically how this boils down to, if you haven't noticed, I don't do a whole lot of like specific reading from my stuff, just because I have to get a little bit closer to it, and I don't want to fumble through it. So basically what the Log is it is a record of every criminal that has ever existed in the world. Ever. And not, when I say ever, I don't mean since the dawn of time, but since, basically I have talked about the Alexander Leonard II, the Emperor of the Abyssal Emperor, the Pontiff of the Obsidian Church. Yes, this guy. When he took power, there was a lot of, like, unease and quarreling, and there were still a lot of, like, armies and people left over from, like, his enemies, the people that he quelled and defeated. So, as a means to kind of organize this and squash this, quell these rebellions and put out these fires across the world, he first created a branch of the military, name pending, but as of right now they are just referred to as the Inquisition, because that is very simple and easy to go for, at least at this time. And the leader, the Grand Inquisitor, whose name is, his last name is Mark. M-A-R-K. I don't recall expressly what his first name was, and that's just a problem of my own situation. What's his name? Torin Mark. He was the first Grand Inquisitor under Alexander Leonard II. Titles. And he basically established branches of the Inquisition all across the world to organize and keep things under control. However, again, in those early days, they don't have a very good way of communicating between the branches and so on and so forth. So, like, he was afraid that a fugitive or a criminal from one section of the world was going to escape persecution and custody by going somewhere else. Basically what he did is establish this log. So if your name goes into the log, it is then followed by pages upon pages upon pages of rumors, sightings, deeds, records, your civic record, your personal record, and your criminal record. It has literally everything on you. No matter what happens, if you at any given point are recognized and recorded and documented, it is going into that log if your name is already in that log. And another fun thing that I threw into this was the fact that even after the log is ever growing, it doesn't stop growing.
No.
And it's not the fact that, like, say you get put into the log and you die, you are not removed from the log. Your just record is bookended with the way that you were of your demise, record of your demise, and then the log continues. And in this way, it's kind of this whole mentality that your name will never be forgotten. Your deeds, however great and terrible they were, will never be forgotten.
Wow.
And you will always remain as a stain.
And there's no way to, like, get off the log. Like, there's
nothing
no way.
Short, and I did put this in before the timer went off, nothing short of a pardon from the Emperor himself.
Wow.
And this privilege has been given to no one in history. Not a single person. And sure, like, in the grand scheme of things, this whole society hasn't been around for too terribly long. Like, 100 or so years. The Abyssal Empire and so on and so forth. Only like 100 or so years. So it's not, that's not a great, you know, that's not a lot of people, but there's still a lot of people in this log. And basically, I'm talking there are, and how this is widespread, because that is kind of the issue that we ran into. How is this widespread? I do note the fact that the main text, the main log, is not widespread. They're not publishing this massive book that is constantly updating almost on a daily basis.
Right.
They are instead publishing and publicizing and spreading basically pamphlets and letters that are lengthy. I talk about it in here that there are job boards and quest boards in cities and towns that are littered with information about all of these people. And I'm not talking about like a simple wanted poster. I'm talking like 99 theses
this
levels
is their blood
of
type. This is the last place they had coffee. Like
everything. And Torin established a very specific branch of the Inquisition whose entire job is to make sure that these things are updated constantly. Like, there is no escaping this. If your name is on the log, there is no escaping. Nobody, it's not you're not going to take a poop and somebody sees you and then somebody across the world is not going to know about it. They're going to know. And that was the entire thinking and idea behind it, is that they want to know everything about this person so that they can capture them, they can imprison them, they can interrogate them, and they can sentence them, if that means an execution or otherwise.
Dang.
So this is a really, really dark thing.
Yeah.
And really heavy.
That's scary.
Yeah. I think I really like the way that that I structured it. The whole clause is basically each section is dedicated to a single person, and it has their entire record from the moment that they get put into the log to the moment that they are killed, or die, or what have you. Caveats, the biggest caveat being the pardon. And your name is never stricken from the records.
Right.
That is not, nobody has ever been stricken from the records. The publication status, talked about that. This is kind of a throwaway thing. It's just another, I'm reiterating something here, but I like the legal status, or at least the way that the little blurb at the bottom to kind of like give us some information on what we're talking about, put it, under whose purview. And this is the Abyssal Empire,
right,
which rules the entire world. There is no hiding from this. There is no safe haven from this. And that was the plan. Torin is kind of a meanie.
Yeah, I don't like that. What was because one of the sections they had on here was public reaction. What does that look like?
So, the public reaction, these are, anyone whose name is put in here it doesn't matter, like, people can just be passing the job board or the quest board and they just kind of take a glance at it and they see somebody's name and they know what that means. They know what those pamphlets mean, they know what those letters mean, they know what it means if your name is on one of them. So basically people just walk by, take a glance, see those names. If they ever interact with those names ever again, they are terrified, they are wary, they are distrustful, they do not like this person.
Yeah.
The public has basically been scared into this idea that if they ever, like, if they sympathize, if they harbor them, that is a crime punishable by death.
Right.
Like, if your name going into the log is a death sentence in and of itself.
Right.
Because no one will help you. No person who's trying to live in the light of the abyssal throne is going to help you.
So even if you did something small, like stole food for yourself or for your family, you're going into the log and you're going to be...
Not specifically.
Okay.
So the log does not... That's actually a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. The log does not encompass literally every crime that is ever committed.
Okay, I was thinking that. I was
the
like,
log,
what?
The log of criminals is more or less set aside for... If your name goes into the log, it is set aside for people that are the worst of the worst.
Got it. Okay.
Like, you have to do some real messed up things in order to be put in the log.
Because my thought process was like, what if someone just, like, jaywalks one day and, like, now their name's
You're in the log!
You're
like,
done! Like,
you're donezo.
Oh, gosh.
No,
okay.
The little thing that I will throw in here as kind of just extra flavor, I didn't write anything about it, but my mind was definitely working on it because I've been working on Nora for quite some time. If your name goes into the log and you have a there's usually that means dead or alive.
Right.
But if you have, but if you are taken alive, or you have like the specific thing that they want to take you alive, there is a location in Nora referred to as the Falling Place, and it is the maximum security prison of the world. That is kind of where people who are on the log, that's more or less where they're going to end up if they're not killed, if they're not executed. But that was kind of just the little caveat in addition that I wanted to make. The sting for Nora, because there are other things, obviously, that we haven't talked about, and we'll talk about it in videos at some point. But that was just, in terms of public reaction, that is... People more or less look at those people as you belong in the Falling Place, and they know what that means.
Right, and it's like...
You're the worst of the worst.
Right, yeah.
There is no redemption that you can seek, aside from, like, the word of the Emperor himself.
Which...
Good luck.
Not gonna happen.
Good luck.
Was there anything else about this that you were excited... Any other sections that you were really excited to fill out?
Legacy, I really feel as I was going through this that I was a bit redundant at times. Legacy to me... Oh, I did enjoy the fact that as I was scrolling through and trying to figure out like what type it was, what kind of document it was, they had a whole section dedicated to records, but none of them really fit. Reports didn't really work, or like a document or a manuscript or something like that. So that was always really fun. I enjoy trying to figure out what kind of typing, if they have those options.
And they even had like mediums, so it could have been like, this is on stone tablets in my world, if it wasn't supposed to be so widespread.
Oh yeah. I really like that, because that's what tripped me up with my initial one, because the other one that I was going to do is like a stone. Is on a stone. And I think that's really cool, because when I initially looked at the document tab, I was thinking, I'm not going to talk about like a piece of paper.
Right.
Like that's that's not important. But it really, document is more or less a universal term to encompass like a piece of literature or even art, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, is what it seems like to me. But I like that. I really like the way that that's set up. I don't really have anything else. The background, the purpose seems pretty straightforward. And yeah, I just felt like I kind of got a little bit redundant talking about if your name goes...
I definitely felt that with mine too.
Yeah, if your name goes in here, you're screwed, was kind of the main gist. And Legacy, I did write in Legacy, but that seems like... Legacy to me means that thing is over and done with in a way. So I kind of struggled with really encapsulating and kind of tying a nice little bow on the end of it. But I think it worked out pretty well.
I think that this particular prompt would be very difficult in working with a setting like Elacrid or any other world where it's not so controlled, or because with Theatrim it's just one continent, so it makes it a little easier on me just to be like, yeah, they distributed this book everywhere. Yeah, they've got a log that kind of keeps track of everything around the world, but if you're working with different countries or different governments or anything like that where it's very separate. I don't know how people would do that.
Yeah, the only thing that really comes to mind is, again, like an arcane tome or perhaps even like a play script or something like that, maybe.
You know, guild rights, like you have the right to sell wares.
Yeah, but I guess trade agreements or trade charters?
Maybe?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Either way.
That's all I got.
That's all I got.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us know in the comments below something that you liked about today's video, or if you have an idea that you're willing to share.
If you enjoyed today's video, please consider hitting all those buttons that everyone else bugs you about. We'd love for you to join our lunch table.
And go check out World Anvil if you're interested.
You guys have been great. I'm Kat.
I'm Arden13. I'm still waiting on that ramen.
We'll see you next time.
Bye!